Hey, welcome back to Warhammer Station. I'm Colin. I changed my camera setup a little bit to make it look like I'm it's a little bit easier to look up the camera instead of like looking down all the time. Uh, Give me some feedback on that. Let me know how good the change is. Um, you can see more, get some more hand movements in there, and be more personable. I think so. Hopefully, that's all a little bit better. Um, So obviously it's Monday. I like to do a news post on Mondays. There's a lot that happens over the weekend. A lot of the games are played, uh, and I just check Reddit for that. I don't have any really uh, secret source for stuff that went on. Um, and when I get to that point in this video, I'll give those people credit, of course. Um, but over the weekend is when Games Workshop drops all their stuff for pre-order. And they usually this weekend they had the Not Warhammer preview. That's really cool with a lot of fun stuff. And Monday they usually hit the ground running with some really cool things. Um, Monday or Sunday, whatever. There is lots of little things. So this first little tidbit is the Lion model is coming out individually. Before it was in like a box set, and now you can purchase him by himself. I guess starting next week. Not sure exactly what that says. Probably so. Um, be able to pre-order him this Saturday, and a cool orc Commander Farsight's going to be available. I really should play this Middle Earth strategy battle game. I have some minis for that for Angmar. It's a lot of fun. The Witch King and all that. All these special editions, people are sleeping on those. They sold out really fast and make a ton of money. I think there's one that just came out. It's going for an insane amount of money on eBay. Um, and all the Warhammer books. That's something I need to do is review Warhammer books. There's a bunch of those. All these that come out, just they're really fun. Gav Thorpe's a fantastic author, and um, it's so fun to live in that universe of the Warhammer universe. Um, yeah. So then the next big piece of news is more plastic knots. Back in April, and that was before I started the channel. They announced this Night Lancer that was coming out, and it's really good. It has an always on invulnerable save, and it's a close combat knot, and um, the rules are for it are really good, but it's just close combat. I think it's a little bit more of a movement thing since that's what's solely focused on. I said always on invul. I think it's a 4+, and it hits pretty decent. Um, so yeah, they announced the two other ones. This one's a combo. Got the Gatling blaster and the sword, not Archeron. And the second one has a flamer and a giant chain fist. Both of these are really good. They've been Forge World, very expensive. They're still going to be expensive, but I think that's going to bring some more people into the fold on these exotic knots, right? Because they can just pop into their Forge World store or their Games Workshop store and buy these, and um, they're not moved to Legends like some of the other stuff did, so they're going to get we'll see more of these stuff on the table, and so hopefully there's some diverse stuff out there. One thing about these knots is they're locked into having combo of close combat and shooting. It seems like no one plays any close combat knots in any form except for maybe like an Armiger or a War Dog. Usually the guns on them are too good that you don't want to run these knots. Plus, with the combination of no invulnerable in close combat, it makes it to where these things can't stand up very well in close combat. And the shooting in this edition is good enough that they're going to take some wounds off of these guys before they even get there, and then fall to lethal hits or thunder hammers or chain fists or whatever else that is enough stuff that can just get put out there enough. Uh, um, so maybe the Lancer would be good, but I'm just not sure about these guys unless they can get their hits just up there really, really well. And don't forget the tank shock stratagem, right? um, the other big piece of news that I'm really, really, really excited about is basically Epic is back. So back in like 2006 when I first started playing this game, I think Epic could still be bought. I never did. And, for the past few years, they put out Titanicus, and you can see some of the models from that game. But this is the starter box set, and man, this looks fun as just a introduction to a new Epic event. And I really like the macro scale idea of this thing. I like having Marines, and they got every setup in here, and then Guard as well. These are like an Imperialis army or something like that. But you got the tanks, you got Terminators, you got Dreadnoughts, you got Titans. It even says in here in this article, and they put out a subsequent article today. This is just an advertisement for the box set, which I assume all of this stuff comes in a box set. One side can be Space Marines, and the other side can be the Army Imperialis. And I would assume that once the actual rule books for this comes out, these are painted up as Death Guard, so you're going to be able to play all kinds of different legions with their different rules. And I really like the idea of this game. See, there was another article that I think I clicked off of. It's got 10 things you need to know about Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, Legion Imperialis. So this is the coolest bullet point. It's all Heresy, but like all of these other models, the big ones you can play in this tabletop game. So I'm sure, there. I don't know how you build the list and all, but I bet there's going to be some really big apocalyptic style battles in this thing. That's just, they usually streamline these things, and the value you can get, you can play a similar game on the table as you can with the regular size of these things. That moves faster, is generally more interactive in a sense of like whole squads are taken care of a lot faster instead of drilling down to the finite level of what individual chainsword does what, right? All of these bullet points are silly, unrelenting. But like, look at these models. You got your cataphracties, you got your jump troops. All of these look just fine. And being able to have Titans in the mix. You can take Titans in any of the tabletop games, be it Heresy or 40K, but they take up most of your army and ends up making you pretty ineffective. And so just a note on this stuff is you go out to the website of what's available now, and there's really not much. You can get a rule book. You can get a War Master Titan. You can get the Forge World Titans. You can get the Warhounds. You can get some cards and some transfer sheets. But all the other knights, except for this Iconoclast Heavy Battle Titan, is out of stock. Right? So your Warbringer, not available. Brain, not available. Restoris Knights, not available. Your big Forge World Titans, not available. Reavers, not available. Warlords, not available. And they're not cheap either. So, I expect this box to be $200+, but for the value you get, that's really good. And I think to really make this thing shine, look at this battlefield on this picture here. It's really cool. Let's click through here. I want to see this. So, they need to do a re-release of this box set, right? And I mean, look, the game looks really in depth. You got tons of options on the sprues. It looks like. Yeah, they don't have that macro picture of the battlefield, but yeah, all these Titans on the battlefield now. Everything, and then you're going to have all the Space Marines mixed in, and it just seems to me like it's got a lower barrier of entry to play a lot more macro of a game in uh, to get all your forces on the battlefield. You know, you buy the box set, you buy a couple Titans, you split another box set with your friend, and you're going to have your Legion, the tanks, all the term. You know, you could probably run just a Terminator army. You know, make some sort of Sons of Horus uh, stuff going on there. I'm real excited to see. I think these articles don't do this game justice at all. I really think it's going to have some deep down dive on the factions. You know, with the traitor Titan legions and the Space Marine factions, and then maybe there's a the Army Imperialis with the tanks. They're going to have a what is that, a Chaos Guard? You know, where they're it's cool to see epic scale beastmen and stuff out there. um, so yeah, I'm excited for that. I want to pick up a set and play with that for sure. And so the last thing to really cover in this is a meta report. And so there is, you really need to check this thread out every week. JCM S85 puts this out, but he gets all his data from Best Coast pairings and collates it and does some statistical analysis on all this stuff. But I think if you scroll through here, there's a really common theme. You know, first and second Eldari, first and second are Eldari. Look at this also in the top 10. 3 Gene Stealer cults, right? Eldari, Tyranids, Imperial Knots. There's a lone 1,000 Suns in there. This one tier, Geelong down in Australia, had a guard list at the top, right? But no Eldari. They must have. I'm really curious to see what was changed here that there's no Eldari. What is different in Australia that's different? I mean, and look, Spain, Austria. These aren't. This is around the world. You know, the Games Workshop and 40K is a worldwide game. With, I mean, and these aren't slouch events either. 50 players, right? 42 players, 58 players, 89 players. And so between Imperial Knights and Eldari and Gene Stealer cults, seems like the top dog, right? And so what's good about this is you scroll through this thread and you figure out why these armies are in the top spot and some interesting tidbits. Here's at the Element Games, the Eldar player was using weighted dice to get first turn. You have to click through and figure out what exactly was going on. But more than that, there's a really good discussion about why the Gene Stealer cults are doing good, and what it is, and they have a mechanic, the blip mechanic to bring units back. They have stratagems that seems like they can be abused in a way that bring units back that shouldn't be. But he basically says that if you want to play and be successful against Gene Stealer cults, you've got to go back and hit those blips. And I think something else was in here that I don't remember what it was, but hitting those blips is going to be a big deal to really counter Gene Stealer cults. And so I'm interested. I've never actually played against them. That's how thin my meta is where I live, right? There's a huge contrast between Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights. And I think up here in the main post it talks about, Chaos Knights had a 47% rate, while the Imperial Knights have a 62% win rate. And so it's real easy to point a finger at the towering rule, but I think this disparity in win rates is the difference here, right? So with Imperial Knights, they just have better army rules compared to Chaos Knights. The Chaos Knight army rule is uh, if a enemy unit is hurt, it takes a battle shock test, and the Chaos Knights get a buff to roll against that. And so the battle shock tests are failed. So even with a debuff, the battle shock tests are failed so infrequently that the Chaos Knights just don't have. They just essentially don't have a faction rule. Contrasted to the Imperial Knights that have, they can reroll a hit or a wound. They give themselves and one armorer a really fancy buff of like either AP or wounds or rerolls or something like that. That within 12 inches, so you can be dynamic and flexible with your Imperial Knights, whereas the buffs on the Chaos Knights are an aura with 6 inches. So they might buff more, but the dynamic, being able to spread out and do stuff, just isn't there. Because in a lot of the Chaos Knights, they have to move around to be effective. It's kind of a big deal. Let's see what else here that we can talk about. World Leaders, what I play, they aren't even mentioned in this. They're not even on the charts. I couldn't tell you what their win rates are. I'd have to go do some analysis myself or read through some comments on this. The guard player, it talks about the guard player in that one tournament. There's basically a house rule that lets him interact with his models in a certain way. I think it had to do with orders and stuff that it didn't that allowed just an OP combo. I need to read more on that. I don't know enough about the guard. That is how those combos work. That would make them that effective over all the other units. But you can see where it's at is Eldari and Gene Sealer cults that are really getting after it and making a difference out there. And of course, the Eldari is the Fate dice and just putting out tons of mortal wounds and making models that are hard to kill and hitting really hard, just doing lots of really good stuff on that battlefield that makes stuff eminently tough, super tough to play against. So I think that's my good start of the week video. I want to talk a lot about World Leaders this week and my lists. I want to give an update on the Warhound Titan, and I might go over some other. I need a plan for the rest of the week. I'm enjoying, tomorrow's Independence Day. I'm going to enjoy the rest of the week, and hopefully get a lot of work done. I've got get more battle tokens out there. I've got terrain that's being worked on. I need some more tokens. Yeah, it's a lot of fun putting all this stuff together. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great day. It's going to be fun.